Welcome to the Indie Author Showcase. I'm your host, Chad Robert Morgan, and this is the podcast about indie authors for indie authors. This is the podcast where we discuss issues that indie authors like myself have to deal with, and also showcase indie authors so you, the audience, can find your next favorite author, an author that you didn't even know existed yesterday. So let me start by discussing Pasadena Comic-Con. That happened last weekend at Pasadena, hence the name. Some pros and cons to this. First of all, it is not nearly the size of, like, say, San Diego Comic-Con. It is way smaller and had way less traffic. I would still call it a successful con for me because the booth fees were so low that even though there was very little crowd happening, very little consumer traffic, I still made booth fees, which technically is still a loss. Because if you think about it, if you're selling $100 worth of books to make a $100 booth fee, you've lost $50. Because the book is roughly twice what I'm charging for. I tend to double my cost for the book. That makes me competitive, right? I've seen some people go 3 times, right? If a paperback costs $5, they charge $15. But when I compare that to like what people are selling books for at Target, what people are selling books for on Amazon, and I'm not talking other indie authors. I'm talking the mainstream. We are overbidding when we do that. So that, to me, I think is a topic of conversation I would like to have with other indie authors. Am I pricing my books too low, or is doing 3 times the cost too high? One article I read says you should do it 3 times. So when you sell a book for $15, $5 is going to your booth fees, $5 is going to pay for the cost of the book, and $5 goes into your pocket. And you need to you don't have to sell as many books in order to make that profit. But you still have to make that booth fee, and you still have to make, if you're not making booth fees, you're at a loss. So you have to sell less books, but you still have to sell a certain number. So to me, I don't see how that completely helps. But let's discuss. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Pasadena Comic-Con. So I was packing up. This was a 1-day event, so I only had 1 day to get all my sales in. There was a plethora of indie authors. If you were looking for, in fact, I typically, like at WonderCon, I try to set up early so I can go around and meet all the indie authors, because there's a cornucopia of indie authors in WonderCon. Pasadena Comic-Con, I would say for its size, had more, right? Not in terms of actual number, but like per capita, it had more indie authors, right? And like half of them I have already met and showcased them on the podcast. The author of Pax Machina was there. Casey Cordell was there. Our friends at Diabolic was there. The author of the Immortal Era was there. So I was able to collect some more material for our TBR. And I didn't even get a chance to meet all of them because there were so many. So that part was good. I like that part. But getting back to the low turnout rate, there's a lot of theories as to why that happened. Not the least of which is this area was decimated by huge fires. I was talking to a buddy of mine. I happen to have a friend that was at Pasadena Comic-Con. He was selling toys, completely unrelated. But a buddy of mine that I know from our D&D games. And I was saying, man, I don't know what this is. Maybe it was like it's the economy. Maybe it's because they did this on a Memorial Day weekend and people were out of town. And he kind of looks at me and says, could be because a lot of these people that would normally come to this convention are displaced because their homes burned down and it hasn't been rebuilt yet. And I hadn't even thought. I mean, in the Altadena Palisades fires are always on my mind because the artist that worked on uh, my last three horror novels, his house was in Altadena, so I'm always thinking about that. In fact, he is a coworker of mine in my day job, on top of everything else. So I mean, I talk to him several times a week, um, and it didn't even dawn on me that the low turnout could be because the people don't live there anymore, because there's no home for them to go home to, and they had to relocate to somewhere else. Um, so yeah, there's who knows why the turnout was low. It could also be because it moved from January to May because of the fires, right? They postponed it because the fires were happening the day it was supposed to, or maybe not the day, but around the time the fires were happening was the time it was, and they're like, okay, now we got an emergency, we got to kill this. Um, so it could be the a whole host of possibilities. Um, but getting back to the Altadena fires, let me go on a slight tangent and say that the other day for my wife's birthday, we were at downtown Disney. For those who aren't local to California, Disneyland has this huge, basically outdoor shopping mall in between their hotels and their parks. And you can kind of go there for the day. You just pay for parking. Um, it's pretty cool. You can catch views of the parks the uh, from the mall area. It's a nice place if you want to do a little shopping, pick up some Disneyland merch without actually having to go into the parks, that kind of thing. Um, and while we were there, we saw these shirts here, right, from Disney, and they were $30 each, and $20 of it goes to American Red Cross and the California Wildlife Fire Fund. So basically, Disney's selling these shirts at cost or close to cost, and the rest of the proceeds are going to charity. So I bought one for myself, one for my wife, to help support the relief efforts for Palisades and Altadena. And so if you are local to the area, please, by all means, swing by downtown Disney, make a day of it, check out the new Avengers store, and then swing by the main Disney store, the World of Disney, there right near the parks, and pick up your LA Strong Mickey t-shirt to help support uh, the recovery efforts for the devastating wildfires that have happened here in California. This isn't a paid promotion. This is just somebody who has a personal connection to the Altadena fires and is just trying to do whatever he can in his minuscule power set to help out. Anyway, let's get back to the podcast. Pasadena Comic Con, as I'm packing up, so I did this show solo, and I didn't take that much, but in spite of that, primarily because we were having such a pain in the butt trying to get in and out of the elevators, I wound up being one of the last people to pack out, even though I didn't have that much. And I was coming back to get the 3D sign that my wife got me, which is really cool. You should come see it in the next event. The convention people were packing up the chairs, packing up the tables, and they're like, "Oh, you left this? I thought you were going to," it's like, no, I was coming back for it. See, I left my jacket here. Let you know I didn't forget it. And he's like, yeah, I think this convention's not going well. It seems to be going less and less. So even the convention workers are noticing a drop off. And I don't know if it's restricted to Pasadena Comic Con, because again, we do. We do have this sort of perfect storm of things happening in this area. One, we have a glut of these conventions, right? Uh, if you go down to Chandler to the Terror Trader event, there's like one a year right there, as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong. If there are more events in Phoenix, I think Phoenix has a Comic Con, but that's more general. But you see what I'm saying. There's not as many. There seems to be one about once a month here in California. In fact, in May there was. I think Casey had one every week. I had 3 this month, right? I had Halfway to Halloween at the beginning. I had Pasadena Comic Con last week, and I have Monster Palooza this week. What was the one Casey did that I didn't do? She did one other one. I'm blanking right now. She had a 4th one somewhere along the line. Maybe it wasn't LA. It wasn't LA Festival of Books, because that was the same weekend as Halfway to Halloween. I think I did better at Halfway Halloween than I would have done at LA Festival of Books, to be honest. But booth fees were half, and I always had LA Festival of Books. It's run by great people. Don't get me wrong; it's a good event. But as a vendor, as a person trying to sell books, it is hard because you're competing with 100 other indie authors, and a lot of these people just come to see celebrities. They're not interested in reading, which is kind of a pain. But that's just me. Getting back to Pasadena Comic Con or conventions in general, I think this next one is going to be a real test. So the next one, which will be literally now as you're watching this video, we will air this video Friday morning. Friday evening will be the beginning of Monster Palooza in Pasadena. Monster Palooza is expanding, right? Monster Palooza has always been a very busy convention for the vendors. A lot of foot traffic in Monster Palooza. So they've actually rented out the theater next door to put in more vendors. So they're expanding. This will be a real test, because if Monster Palooza drops off, then this is kind of a global problem. Like, I went to this other event just to check it out. It was Twisted Tales or something like that. And they were in the same space as Creep at Real OC. And there were huge swaths of the area that were empty. And there was like one guy that was like almost by himself. And I was like, were you in trouble? Were you bad? Are they punishing you? It's kind of hard. Like, October Village, I think, is doing rather well, but I think one of the reasons it's doing well is because they're keeping it small. It's almost guerrilla style. You can go there. It's a free event, and you can go there for like 2 hours and see everything that's there. Hell, you can probably see everything that's there in 1 hour, really. But it was packed, right? For its size, it had a lot of foot traffic. You're not going to get, the kind of volume that you're going to traditionally get at, say, Midsummer Scream. But for its size, it was packed, and there was plenty of foot traffic. I just think that approach, I think, is working better. Keep it small, keeping it compact, keeping it more flexible, as opposed to these bigger conventions. I think there's a lot of people that are trying to be the next big, they're trying to be the next Creep IE, the next Midsummer Scream, and they're struggling because there's like a bunch of them out here right now. And so you get that, all these conventions, with the economy coming down, hopefully that'll pick back up, because we just had a court ruling that said, the tariffs can't, a lot of the tariffs can't happen. So, not to get political, but hopefully that'll affect the economy in a positive direction. Fingers crossed. So I mean, it's just a lot going on in this area. In fact, I would be interested to know, for those not in California, like Texas Frightmare Weekend was, I believe, this month. How did that go? To people who went to that one, was it packed? Did you see a drop off? Is what I am experiencing more local to here in California, or is this a global trend? That's what I would like to know. So please send me email, send me feedback, leave comments on the video. Tell me what you think. Is this a global problem across the entire country, or am I just seeing an issue local to California because we've been hit with a bunch of different stuff happening all at once? Let me know. Speaking of October Village, now October Village is fun because it's a little pop-up thing, and I got to figure out how to sign up for this thing, because I met an author there, a little bit of a segue here, and got one of his books, and as luck would have it, his booth was across and one over from me from Pasadena Comic-Con, and we had a good old time, because again, it was a little slow, right? So we were joking around and having this guy he was fun to hang with. This guy was a ball, right, to chill with. And on top of that, again, I didn't know he was going to be there. He found out about Pasadena Comic-Con because he saw a clip of the podcast on Instagram. He applied. There were still spaces available, which also kind of tells you the state of Pasadena Comic-Con. There are spaces available 2 weeks before the con, but that's neither here nor there. So, and by luck, I had read his book by the time Pasadena Comic-Con came around. So I was able to tell him, yeah, this was a good book. I dug this book. And when he had customers come by, like sometimes I'll see a customer come by with one of his books and said, I ain't read that one, but I read this other one, and he is a good writer. I really enjoyed his other book, and if that book is half as good, you're good. You're going to enjoy it. So with great pleasure, let me tell you about The Big Decay by Eric Williford. My biggest regret is he was telling me he might be moving to Atlanta, which will be Atlanta's gain and our loss. But I would love it if he stuck around, because I want to do another convention with him, especially if it's a slow one, because he is a card. I loved hanging with him. So let's talk a little bit about The Big Decay. This is a collection of 3 short stories. And I'm going to talk about the short stories in order of how I enjoyed them. Now keep in mind, this is more personal opinion. A lot of this has to do with what flavors of books I like, that kind of thing. But let's start with the title's namesake, The Big Decay, which is actually the middle story of this. This is basically what if the pilot of Fear the Walking Dead would be like if it was written by Mickey Spillane. Okay? This is a gumshoe crime story taking place as the zombie apocalypse is starting. And once you get to the end of the book, you kind of realize that these things are actually related, and it's not just a random setting. This one, it's a good, solid story. I liked it. I'm just not too into the the noir gumshoe Mickey Spillane type book. It's just not my vibe, right? So I didn't enjoy that one as much. Again, not saying it's bad, just saying wasn't my flavor. The third book is, or the third story is about a woman who invites an old high school friend over, and the high school friend has gotten some success as a writer, and she wants to be a writer, and she winds up kidnapping the writer to make her book better. And this one had a lot of misery vibes to it. In fact, I mentioned that to him. He says, "Yeah, I get that a lot." So this was an interesting thing. It is sort of like Misery Light, right? Like, she's not nearly as iconic as Kathy Bates was in the movie. But she definitely got some issues, and that is resolved in a way different manner. I enjoyed that one a bit more, primarily because, I mean, as a writer myself, I kind of sympathized a little bit, and it got a little meta, where at one point they're writing the book that you're actually reading, or at least reading, they're writing a book based on the events that you are currently reading. So it got a little meta about 2/3 of the way through, which was kind of interesting. I thought that was a stronger story. I thought that was a bigger swing. I thought he could do more with it. It did kind of feel like it was going good and going good and going good, and then it was like, I don't know what else I'm going to do with this. Okay, let's come to the ending, which is, I mean, sometimes it's that way. When I was doing Fear, it was kind of that way. I actually wanted to have like a bad night, and then the climactic in night where everything goes to total shit. And as I'm working on that middle one, I'm like, why do I need to pause? Let's just keep going. Let's blow everything up and cut straight to the end. And I think it made for a better book, because I mean, it kind of ebb and flow kind of thing. It wouldn't have worked. So maybe he wanted to build more with it, and it was just like, man, it's just not gonna, sometimes you got to kill your darlings. Sometimes you just got to go, okay, this thing was a good idea, but it's run its course, right? I think that was the stronger of the two short stories that we talked about. But let me tell you, and like I said, these are both good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to shit on them or anything like that. I think the biggest problem these two short stories had is that they were paired with the first one. And the first one, as good as those two are, the first one blew my mind, right? It's kind of like, have you ever eaten ice cream and then pulled a cold soda out of the fridge and drank it? No matter how cold that soda is, it's not as cold as ice cream, and it's going to feel warm by comparison, right? So these other two stories, they're good, right? But compared to this first one, Honora, was it Honora? I believe it was Honora. Honora, yeah. Oh my God. Honora had me hooked by the first few pages, where it's like, oh, the police are outside. Page 138 done. Oh, they're going to come buttering through the door. They're going to shoot tear gas. 139. This writer is just working on this page while the police are coming into her house. Now, I'm not a big fan of the, 3 weeks before kind of thing. It's like, I like to start at the beginning myself. But in this case, it worked. That first prologue was such a strong hook. Oh my God, I was into that. And then the slow buildup. So what basically happens is we have an author who's kind of dealing with writer's block. She's had a very good, very critically acclaimed novel. But she's not like Stephen King. She's not making Stephen King money. She's not, she's making enough that she can make a living off of it, but she's not she's not doing J.K. Rowling numbers. You know what I'm saying? So her agent says, I got a cabin up in a secluded area in the woods. You can go in there, get some privacy, work on your book. While she's up there, she's dealing with the locals, and she stumbles into basically a crime scene, and there's this doll. And for whatever reason, this book doesn't really explain, but she starts talking to the doll. And she thinks the doll's talking back to her. And it's just, it goes on from there. And I mean, it has like some seriously erotic sex scenes in there. It's got one of the things that was really odd at first, and I really started getting into, is the doll and the main character are the only ones that actually have names. Right? She winds up with this lesbian love affair with a stripper, never mentions her by name. Her boyfriend comes to visit her, never mentions him by name. And I think that's part of her psychoses, right? Like, she is so like, in her world, it's just her and this doll. Like, everybody else are just NPCs, right? Nothing else matters. And that's part of the problem. She's so lost into this doll for whatever reason. And it also kind of begs the question, is the doll possessed? Is there something with the doll? Or is this all in her fucking head? I don't know, and I love it. Now, the fact that she found the doll at a crime scene kind of suggests there's something with the doll, because this has happened before, obviously. But it could just be a coincidence, right? She could have just stumbled on a crime scene, found a piece of evidence, found this doll laying there, and just, like, had a psychotic snap or something. I don't know. It is so trippy, right? And she's just, like, working on this book while all this stuff is going on. And like I said, things are just getting worse and worse and worse for her as she's getting more and more attached to this inanimate object. And if you don't read any other short story in this book, get it for the first one. That really, I mean, again, story 2 and 3, good solid stories. I liked it. I enjoyed it. The Big Decay, if you're into the kind of a gumshoe crime novel procedural with a little twist of Walking Dead in there, you'll like it. It's fine. The third short story, again, kind of like all female misery kind of thing. Dug that. But Honora blew my mind. If he writes more stories like this guy is going to go places. I'm going to tell you that. That I have another book of his. Now, I don't read other writers' works again because I need to get through my TBR list, right? It would be unfair to go back and redo, more of Eric's works when I got other people on the list, right? I need to, but he's got another book that I bought at the same time, and I almost read first because it was shorter. It's called The Dead Ate, I think it's The Dead Ate the Cheese. Some sort of weird zombie comedy thing. And I'm like, oh, now I want to read it. So, definitely check out his work. He is a great author and a great all-around guy. This guy was fun to hang with. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about Honora, and I can't say enough good, which is the first short story in the book, and I can't say enough good things about him as a person. That is a win-win combination right there. So, The Big Decay by Eric Williford. Give it a shot. With that said, I'm going to wrap this podcast up, especially since I got a meeting for my day job in about 15 minutes. Oh, day jobs. What the hell? Our next event will be literally this weekend as this episode drops at Pasadena. I'm going back to the Pasadena Convention Center for Monsterpalooza. This will be probably the biggest convention of the year. We had Creep IE, which is, if it's not bigger than Monsterpalooza, it's competitive, right? Creep IE is pretty large. And we'll have Creep IE Aftermath of September. Now, Aftermath is usually the off-season one. It's not as busy as the main one. But it's the same building, the same size. So, but with Monsterpalooza expanding and Monsterpalooza usually is huge crowds on this, typically. So fingers crossed that that trend continues, and they don't have a drop off as we've seen in other conventions. Fingers crossed. June, I don't have any planned, but I do have a couple of friends going to the Hellmouth convention around June 15th, somewhere around there. The Hellmouth convention will be taking place in Torrance, California. Our friends Raven Belasco and Casey Cordell will both be there. So please go check them out. I'm planning on going there just to check out the convention and hopefully meet with Raven and Casey. Maybe have a little dinner afterwards or something. Who knows? We'll see. I'll see how it goes. Then July, I will be trying out Hauntmare Expo in Fresno. This is only the second year they've done this. The first year, from what I've heard from other vendors, went very well. So I signed up to this cold, which my wife won't let me do anymore because we had a couple bad ones. But we're going to go ahead and give this a shot. And this will probably be, other than the Miami Book Festival, which I did like a long time ago, this will probably be the furthest from my home base that I have traveled to do a convention. But even with the hotel fees, the booth fees were pretty low. So this is actually kind of a low risk convention for me, money wise. Here's hoping that it pays off, and I will let you know in a couple of months. So if you are anywhere in the Fresno area, please check out Hauntmare Expo in July. Then we have Creep IE Aftermath in September, as I mentioned. After that, I am going to drive out to Chandler to check out Ghoul's Day Out, which is the Terror Trader sponsored event. Again, we'll be going there to recon it, to see how it is, to see if we want to apply for it next year, because the wife won't let me sign up unless we do that first. And then October, we will have Son of Monsterpalooza. And that will probably be our convention schedule for the year. So if you want to come see me in person, if you want to get an autographed copy of one of my books, or if you've already bought one of my books and you just want to get the autograph on it, just bring the book to me at the booth. I'll be more than happy to autograph it after the fact. So come see me at any of these conventions here in California. And in the meantime, keep on reading.